The comments, opinions, and views shared during this program are of those individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of a Grand Lodge, Concordant Body, Appendant Body, Masonic Authority, or CraftsmanOnline.com.
Welcome back to the Craftsman Online Podcast, the only Masonic podcast endorsed by the Grand Lodge in New York. I'm your host, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. Oh, Memorial Day weekend. We are finally here for summer, bro. Bring it. Before we jump into this week's episode where we learn to lead your lodge like a Marine, it's going to be a good one. Want to thank our friends on Patreon who are subscribing and supporting this show. Yeah, just $5 a month. You get ad-free episodes. You also get access to the full back catalog of subscriber extra episodes, which is ironically going to feature this week's guest. We get some extra time with Brother Jesse. Start your free 7-day trial on Patreon by clicking the link in the description for this episode. I have to admit, our guest this week has a more fun last name to pronounce than mine. Worshipful Brother Jesse Ouellette is a past master of Singleton Hope Lebanon Lodge number 7 in our nation's capital, the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. But most importantly, he's also a major in the United States Marine Corps, and it is a pleasure to welcome him back to the Craftsman Online Podcast. Brother Jesse, hello.
Right, Worshipful. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me back for a second time.
For guys our age, before there was the John Cena Marine movie, before A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise, there was Full Metal Jacket. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to that movie and go, oh, that's what the typical Marine experience is like. And I think as we get into this discussion on leading like a Marine, we should probably set, our baseline. As Masons, we drop our plumb line here, right? So in the Marines, you talk about a fundamental difference between management and you talk about a difference in leadership. How do you look at that and how do you define that through the lens as a Marine?
From early on, regardless of how you enter the Marine Corps as an American, whether you go the enlisted route or you become an officer, enlisted, go to boot camp, either at MCRD, which is Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, if you live west of the Mississippi, or if you live east of the Mississippi, you go to the infamous Parris Island, which is what that movie Full Metal Jacket is, at least the first half of the movie is based on. And if you're an officer, you go to Officer Candidate School, which is in Quantico, Virginia. But regardless of whatever your entry mechanism is into the Marine Corps, all Marines, regardless of rank, are taught the same basic fundamental principles. And I think that is because the Marine Corps prides itself in this concept of disaggregated leadership. So we very much focus on this concept of the strategic sergeant or the strategic corporal, right? Being that lower level enlisted rank, understanding what the intent of hire is. In other words, the intent of what your leadership is. So God forbid, in a war type scenario, if your entire leadership chain is taken out and it's up to you, that 20, 21-year-old Lance Corporal of Marines, to carry out the mission of the day, you can do it because you understand what it is to be done. And there's different mnemonics that they teach for young kids, because that's what you are really. And we think about like boot camp, you're pretty much between the ages of 17 and 20 when you're going there. A lot of people go older, but that's the average age. An officer, you're just post undergrad, typically when you're going to OCS. So everybody is essentially below the age of 25. So you go in and they're going to first teach you this mnemonic called JJ, did tie buckle. I don't know if you want me to get into that, if you want me to talk about the leadership principles.
Oh, I'm salivating over this. Let's do it.
So Marines that are listening to this, they're going to be like, I remember that crap. Like, bet that, drill instructor, sergeant instructor used to beat that into my head. Like we would have to say it, whether we're marching to the chow hall or we're, scuzz brushing the floor or something like that. JJ tid tie buckle. So justice, judgment, dependability, initiative, decisiveness, tact, integrity, enthusiasm, bearing, unselfishness, courage, knowledge, loyalty, and endurance, right? So these are the fundamental principles. Well, we use principles for something else. These are the leadership traits that all Marines are to exemplify, again, regardless of rank. You could be a private, you could be a 4-star general. You're taught this thing. When you start to come up the chain, and again, even when you're enlisted, you'll eventually find yourself in a position, whether you're a fire team leader or you're a platoon leader, you're a squad leader on up, platoon sergeant, where you will start to have Marines who fall underneath you. And this happens very early on in a Marine's career. It could happen in the first 4 years. And then you're going to have to understand, learn, and live what we call the leadership principles. And I think, Mike, that this is probably the most translatable thing to what the other part of this conversation is that we're going to be talking about. And it's not just about Masonic lodges. You can translate these leadership principles to anything that you do in life, to C-suite executives in the private world, to government employees, or to a Masonic lodge. And they're these, simply put: know yourself and seek self-improvement. Sounds very Masonic, right? Be technically and tactically proficient. Again, very Masonic. Know your Marines and look out for their welfare. Or we could just say, know your Masons and look out for their welfare. Know your people and look out for their welfare. Keep your Marines informed. Set the example. Ensure the task is understood, supervised, and accomplished. I'll dig into that a little bit more later when we come to leading the lodge. Train your Marines as a team. Train your people as a team. Make sound and timely decisions. Develop a sense of responsibility among your subordinates. I think that's super important. Employ your command in accordance with its capabilities. Put another way, understand folks, their capabilities and limitations, and don't overextend them and don't undertask them. Employ them, as they are trained to be employed and what their skill set demands. And then finally, seek responsibility and take responsibility for your actions. So these are the leadership principles.
How soon in basic training does this start, as you said, getting drilled into your head? Like immediately after getting the haircut and what you're going to be walking around and wearing, or a couple weeks in? Like, how soon does this start?
If you're enlisted, the boot camp essentially lasts approximately 13 weeks, and it's divided up into different phases. OCS is about 10 weeks long, and it's also divided up into different phases. If my memory serves me correctly, which I'm confident that it probably doesn't, because sleep deprivation is a part of this process, I think it's in phase 2 that you start to get taught some of these, because phase 1 is really that breakdown. That's where, there's this famous saying in the Marine Corps where you don't become a Marine, you are made a Marine. In order to do that, there is a very complex, time-tested, see Full Metal Jacket plan that is implemented in order to transition you from being a civilian into a United States Marine. And phase 1 is that breakdown phase. That's where you're going to go into sleep deprivation. You're going to have a lot of stress heightened in you very quickly, hence all the yelling and screaming, et cetera, et cetera. That's all designed to test you to see how you're going to respond to that stress. So once that phase is complete, then there's this sort of camaraderie / building up phase. And it's in that building up phase that these principles and these leadership traits that I just articulated to you are really sort of ingrained into the training curriculum and ingrained into your mind in a way that you're never going to forget it.
I want to make sure that I'm saying this like the cool guys. Do you guys just refer to it as tie buckle, or do you call it JJ did tie buckle? Like, what do you say?
So you have to say the whole mnemonic. So it's JJ did tie buckle, because the 2 J's are justice and judgment. Yeah.
The movie that kind of inspired me to go, oh my gosh, I'm going to write a podcast outline. I want to do a whole episode on this. And I'm going to reach out to Worshipful Brother Jesse. As I told you, not the biggest, huge Jackman fan, but the movie Song Sung Blue, he plays a Neil Diamond impersonator. And I'm just saying this for the benefit of maybe 1 or 2 people that haven't seen the movie yet, because they don't fully appreciate the breadth and width of this man's talent. But there's a scene where he has a medical emergency, and he talks about being a Marine and how he learned SMEAC and explains the steps to do it right before he has cardiac arrest and needs to be shocked by a defibrillator to reset his heart pattern. It's awesome the way that he does it. And I hit pause during the movie and I tell my wife, just 1 second, as I'm Googling this and going, okay, this is a real thing. This really happened. So for those that haven't seen the movie, again, probably 1 or 2 of us, what is SMEAC and what does it mean?
I have not seen the movie, although I do think that huge jacked man is probably one of the more talented actors in Hollywood. A big fan of a lot of his work, although I haven't seen a lot of the DC Marvel stuff. But he was great in The Greatest Showman.
I also will admit to watching that, yes.
SMEAC, and for those in the know, for the initiated, if you will, It's called the 5-paragraph order. That's how we refer to it. And for those who join the service, we'll say post 2006, we refer to it as OSMIAC, which is really a 6-paragraph order, but don't tell anybody. So that sixth paragraph, if you will, stands for orientation. So we'll go through the whole thing. Orientation, situation, mission, execution, administration and logistics, and then command and signal. And this is old. This is nothing new. Everybody in the military, regardless of service branch, to include the Coast Guard, gotta love our Coast Guard folks, they understand what the 5-paragraph order is. It's also been translated to federal and state, local, tribal law enforcement. They use it as well. And I think that everybody should use it. This is really a concept of communicating an idea. And again, we use this term repeatedly, an end state of somebody who is in charge to people that they are leading. So again, if that person dies, it's all written down on paper. You know what it is. And it outlines, as we said before, orientation, like where am I? What am I doing? What country am I in? What lodge am I in? What year are we talking about? What's the situation? The situation is that this evening we are going to execute a plan that we're going to have this program in the lodge. We're going to have these particular guests the Grandmaster might be visiting. What's the mission? The mission is to successfully receive the Grandmaster, to ensure that the program goes off without a hitch, that we recognize the brethren who are there to be recognized. How are we going to execute that? Well, we're going to do it by ritual, and we're going to rehearse prior to make sure that our ritual is on point. And we're going to go through all of the different mechanisms in order to ensure that things go smoothly. Okay, well, how are we going to do that? Well, that's the administrational logistics, right? We're going to be on this date and this time and make sure that you have this particular food there and make sure that we're wearing this particular outfit, et cetera, et cetera. And the logistics involved in that. And then finally, command and signal. These are things like leadership and communication. Who's in charge? What's the contingency plan if the worshipful master is not there? Who's going to be doing X, Y, and Z, right? All this stuff is written down. That's what SMEAC is. And it can be translated to pretty much anything that you do in life. And in the military, at least, everything, every single order is written in this form. It's going to be in Courier, New, or whatever the font is, right? That old typewriter font. And you're going to see it will literally be written out. Orientation, situation, mission, execution, admin, logistics, command and signal. It doesn't matter. Every single person reads this. It has common sense as you writing the standard letter, right? Like it's just like that's just how our brains work.
It goes back to those of us in the civilian life. So it would be keys, cars, cash, cigarette, wallet. Like we knew what we needed to do before we walked out of the house. But to me,
right.
when I saw it in a movie, I started Googling it. Then I dropped it into my AI bot and started having conversations about it and like how to use it. And was just completely fascinated and was sitting there. And again, I'm not knocking higher ed, but it was one of those moments where I'm like, did I really need to get my MBA? I could have just started reading books on this stuff and would have learned things that I still am paying student debt loan to.
If I could just add one thing to that, I think it's important to understand the context of where a lot of this stuff originated and developed, right? What we're talking about is institutions of predominantly throughout history, men, not just like Masonry, who were training for warfare, right? They're training for warfare. And when you think about it that way, and think about like total war, like World War I, World War II status, you need stuff to be clear, concise, and decisive. Essentially, if your plan isn't clear enough in the 5-paragraph order format, then it's just not clear enough, right? You need to refine it to make sure that it's understood under a situation of stress and confusion. And I think that if we simplify things like that with anything that we do, everything just runs smoother. You know, people who don't really understand or aren't fully read into all of the complexities of your plan don't need to be, because they get the 5-paragraph orders right there in front of them.
On my lunch breaks, I just watch YouTube videos about U.S. Marine leadership. I love it. I'm all in. I wish I could, at my age, I wish they would take a 48-year-old.
Mike, I tell you, you get taught and you learn either when you're first entering the Marine Corps, all the way up through, there's different echelons of education that Marine officers have to go through, right? So for us, at the company grade level, which is second lieutenant through captain, you have to go to the Expeditionary Warfare School. Thereafter, as a field grade officer, which is major through full bird colonel, you have to go to command and staff college. And then as a colonel, sometimes as a lieutenant colonel, it's highly encouraged and required if you ever want to see general officer that you go to the War College. Of course, it's the National War College, but all services have their own war colleges. Most of these for us are based in Quantico, the Marine Corps University. But all throughout these, there's volumes of doctrine that are just chock full of these different mnemonics and acronyms. One that I would bring to your attention that I think is highly relevant for this discussion are the basic troop leading steps. And this acronym is BAMSIS. And Marines know this well because after you complete something successfully, like a good night out on the town, or you scored yourself, I don't know, a good cigar at the cigar shop, you would turn to each other and you'd say, hey, BAMSIS, right? So BAMSIS stands for begin planning, arrange for reconnaissance, make reconnaissance, complete the plan, issue the order, and supervise. Sounds very, very military. Sounds very like you're a tactician, right? But all this really means is like, I want to plan out my year for masonry, right? Okay, I'm going to start to plan what that year is going to look like. Then I'm going to start to detail people to research certain programs that I want to have or venues that I want to hold certain events at. That's arrange for reconnaissance. Make the reconnaissance, right? Contact the vendors, go to the places, contact the people that you want to have at your lodge. Then complete the plan, put it all down on paper. Then publish it, right? Issue the order. And that's your trestle board, whether it's for the night or whether it's for the year. And then the most important one, and there's this other saying in the Marine Corps and the military wide, you need to put the S in BAMSIS. And this is where I see a lot of leaders in masonry and elsewhere fail, is they don't execute the S, which is supervise. You have to ensure that your plan is being executed in the way that you had originally designed it. Because, and I'll say, especially for volunteer organizations, I know that a lot of worshipful masters, regardless of the year, suffer with this a lot. People are busy. We have families, we have jobs, we have other things that we're involved in. And when it comes to a volunteer organization like this, if you're not, if someone's not saying, hey man, did you reach out? Like, did you do this? Or if you're not supervising, those tasks are going to fall by the wayside. And all of a sudden, you're at that moment where you need to execute it and nothing's been done. Right? So that S in BAMSIS is vital, but highly relevant acronym, BAMSIS.
I feel like that was the one that you mentioned on the Mastering Your Trestle Board.
Marines love that one. We love it.
The thing that I found so amazing during all the research and the YouTube videos and the online, and I found the Principles of Marine Corps Leadership. It's a course book that was just filled with tons of these little gems. And I'll share that in the show notes for this episode if somebody wants to check out this. But it hit me like the first time I read Sun Tzu's Art of War. It was like Chinese fortune cookie wisdom. Know your people and look out for their welfare. Set the example. Train your Marines and sailors as a team. Stuff that's simple because it's freaking brilliant. At what point did you realize, you're going into the Marines after having some bit of a civilian life, starting your Masonic life? When did you start realizing that, hey, I can take some of these points and principles and apply them to a life outside of the Corps?
I think it was almost immediate. I had the same epiphany that you just articulated right now. It's like, this is so simple. It should be obvious to everybody. And then and you look at, how some folks who are like life coaches or consultants for, major corporations make their money. And it's like, hey, what you should really do is save money. It's like, oh, geez, I thought that before. It's like, hey, what you should really do? You should, take care of your folks. And you're like, oh, you know what? That's really simple. And it's an unbelievable payoff. I think these time-tested truisms, if you apply the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they're time-tested and true. There's a reason why they're so simple to understand, and that's because they work. So for me, it was immediate. I noticed okay, this makes sense. And then I started to apply it and adapt it to other aspects of my life. And I found those other aspects of my life dramatically improving and getting a lot easier to manage.
I think there's another shared frustration that leaders will have. For you have a mixed background. You college educated, U.S. Marine. For me, didn't have the honor of serving, so we'll just go with college educated. The corporate term that they like to throw on us is high performers, right? We walk into a situation and, we immediately jump in as leaders and start doing things. You have that additional set of acronyms and books and wisdom that comes from the U.S. Marine Corps. But there's a huge difference between a fighting force or a corporate executive team and a Masonic lodge. because we're talking about a volunteer organization here. And I wanted to get to this question because there is that level of frustration sometimes when you're used to being in a position of authority and you're used to having to make quick decisions. How do you do that in a sometimes slow moving volunteer organization without causing friction among the brothers?
It's way easier, to be honest with you, because you already have, it's like, I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but it's like going up and you have some donuts on the bat, and you're on deck and you're swinging it, it's heavier, and then you finally go to swing that bat and it feels light as a feather.
Right.
That's the analogy. And it's very, very, very accurate, because when I, at least speaking for me and what I would advise other people to do, my whole Masonic year, I was Worshipful Master of William R. Singleton, Hope Lebanon Lodge, number 7 in Masonic year 2025. That whole year was planned out by June 2024. It was done. So, and I had backup plans to that because I applied this other acronym that we don't have to get into right now called MCPP, which is the Marine Corps planning process, right?
Oh, that's getting its own notepad card.
The old MCPP.
I'm going to be researching that one tonight.
That is the logistician's bread and butter, the MCPP. When it came to dealing with the lodge, whether it was like the ongoing activities of the year or of a particular state of communication, I already knew exactly what the plan was because I had developed the 5-paragraph order, right? Because I had applied BAMSIS. Like all this stuff was already working and functioning. I think that maybe to get a little bit deeper into your question, how would we lead, or how would I lead specifically when there would be an event that would occur that maybe was contentious or it was slow and like something kind of like unexpected happens? That's a simple answer too. And that really doesn't have that much to do, a little bit, with some of these acronyms, but it's really about, for me, and this is totally personal, putting it into perspective. Like, how important is it that what we're actually talking about right now? How much do I care about it? And am I going to be one of those people who I'm really going to dig into something because I'm the worshipful master and like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah? Or am I going to try to understand the human behind there? I'm going to go back to it. Know my Masons, right? Understand where they're coming from, their different backgrounds, their perspectives. We have a lot of cultural diversity in this district. Perhaps it's an ethnic or a religious perspective that they're coming into the conversation with, or just simply a broader cultural perspective, and they have an opinion about something and they're disagreeing with this other person. Taking a moment, pausing, considering all aspects of that, and coming to some sort of amicable solution after having already what we call prep the battlefield of who I am. People know me and know my leadership style, and hopefully I've garnered some semblance of respect. So when I do speak and I do try to adjudicate something in a position of leadership, I'm listened to as opposed to ignored because I'm viewed as a weak leader, then there's some kind of a solution and remedy that I can apply to that situation. And that happened several times throughout the year. And I thought that, I could be wrong, but based upon my perception, I think that those situations were handled with in a way that everybody was satisfied and we had harmony prevail in the lodge.
It's the Craftsman Online Podcast. I'm your host, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. Joining us this week is Worshipful Brother Jesse Ouellette. Jesse also has the distinct honor of being a major in the United States Marine Corps. I just mentioned that because we do air a disclaimer at the beginning of the podcast. I know some of our listeners skip by it, but we talk about how the opinions that we share during these episodes are that of the individual and, not of the reflective of a Grand Lodge or any appendant body. And I also want to say it's not the opinions that are shared on this episode are just solely ours and are not reflective of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of War, the military, anything like that. And I have to say, Worshipful, one of the ideas that you shared, your perspective, really has kind of helped me evolve my thought on leadership itself. I always believed that leadership was a trait that we were born with, that it was a talent, right? And listening to you and, of course, reflecting on some of the principles of Marine Corps leadership that I've researched on, where they talk about leaders can be made and are made, that what they're giving are the foundations, these learning objectives, these training sessions. Really, these are the skills, the ingredients that help produce the successful outcome.
Yeah, perhaps. I think that that's where we really think about this word motivation and what it means to be a motivational leader. But how that, again, translates to Masonry, you need to be able to find what motivates people. And I think for me, in that circumstance, applying sort of, we'll call it the penumbra of examples from my Marine Corps experience, because this is the theme of the podcast. And of course, I would agree with you. A lot of this is personality driven as well, right? Again, know your Masons, know what makes them tick, know what they're interested in, and know what drives them. And I try to find specific jobs for specific people that I know they're passionate about. And then I don't micromanage. I task them out and I'll supervise it. That will keep them interested. That will keep them coming. And if I give them sort of a general overarching mission, and I choose these particular people with these particular passions that have the requisite skill sets, then I just watch them do their thing. And they're good at it. And oftentimes they're way better than I would have ever been, right? Like, I'm not that good at IT. I choose the guy who's passionate about IT. I'm like, hey man, you're not that, you want to come that much. I get all volunteer, stuff like that, but you are a computer programmer. Would you run our website for us? Yeah, it's easy. I love doing that stuff. Okay, great. Now I got an awesome website for the year. You love taking pictures and social media. Will you do that for us this year? That would be great. And then I plug and play that asset, right? Et cetera, et cetera. You kind of get the point. But that definitely had to be that year.
You hit up like two of my leadership principles, which is, the sign of a good leader is that leaders delegate. And then I think this is another Marine Corps principle is this, the sign of a good leader is you immediately start seeking and training your replacement. And that's another thing that I've learned about good leaders is they know when and how to pass the baton, because that is so key for the health and the vitality of any organization or team.
It's because it's about the institution, right? Not the person. And another thing I'll say, you hit on this before about like promotion, like how you work your way up. In the Marine Corps, we have this culture where we say that promotion is not a reflection of past performance, it's a recognition of future potential. So there's this overarching theme and culture of like, bro, it's not about you. This is not about you. This is about service. This is about the institution. You are a tool in a cog that is this larger thing. And yes, I understand that in Masonry is slightly different because it's a journey of the self and an exploratory journey of looking inwards and shaping that rough after into the perfect one. But I think at a certain level in your Masonic esoteric ladder, you do realize it's about the collective. And your journey to the self is really about the collective. It's not just about you, because otherwise, what's it all for? Right? So you can keep it and bring it to the grave, because we all know that we journey to that same place at the end of the day, right?
As soon as you said that, like I started thinking of a very recent conversation I had with our most worshipful Grandmaster. Hold on, let me see. This episode drops in May. So he will be a past Grandmaster at this point of the Grand Lodge of New York, Stephen Adam Rubin. And he talked about it. He's like, you're the future of the craft. That's why you're put in these situations. And I think of brothers like you, and as when you were a senior warden and we were all looking at you going, this guy's going to be the master of one of the most prestigious lodges in the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. I can't wait to see where this dude takes this lodge next year, because it's going to be amazing.
No pressure.
Well, it's the one trait, the leadership trait, the simple one, set the example. And that was the thing that I saw is here is somebody who's not just acting as a leader, but he is being a leader. I remember a boss one time telling me in order to be the man, you have to be the man.
Yeah, I'm sure there's volumes of stuff that we didn't get to. This is what I prepared for this evening. I gave you a lot. I think I gave you the basics. Anything more, we're going to have to get you to earn that Eagle Globe and Anchor. To provide a sort of like a summary of my thoughts on how this all kind of ties together, the leadership traits. Define who you are. The principles define how you lead people. BAMSIS and SMEAC, or OSMEAC, define how you execute. And tools like OODA Loop and McPP define how you think. And when you apply all of that to the lodge, everything does become clearer, it becomes more structured and more effective, and supplement the word lodge for anything that you want in life. But that's what I would say.
Thanks again to my guest this week, Worshipful Brother Jesse Ouellette, past master of Singleton Hope Lebanon Lodge number 7 in our nation's capital, and one hell of a fine American, major in the United States Marine Corps. We're going to get some bonus time with him on Thursday. I'm Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. Can you believe it? Next week, we are into June. Yeah. And we'll be talking about membership and retention and the unique way that the Grand Lodge of New York is addressing this problem through the North Star program. That's on Monday. Until then, let peace and harmony prevail.